Yeah, so my name is Michael Steffens. I work for the European Union delegation here in Jordan as aid coordination, quality support, and governance manager. And yeah, for during the crisis, we of course responded from the office and had to telework relatively abruptly. The country was on lockdown relatively quickly here. It was only allowed at some point then to go out to smaller shops to do your necessary shopping and to just buy the things that we really need to survive, so to speak. The bigger supermarkets and all the shops were closed for quite some time. And then over summer, when things opened up again, I was able to return to Germany and work for a month from there, and then also attach a month of holiday to see my family. But of course, it was quite challenging because normally, since my family is in Germany, I'm going back like 6 or 7 times a year to see them regularly. And in this case, I had a period of like 6 months where we could only catch up online. Similarly, also with friends, I mean, I've cut down on contacts quite a bit. Now in the second wave, we have a huge increase in numbers here. So Jordan is now one of the highest populated country in terms of cases. And among 1 million people, we are basically up with cases as the second highest or third highest in the world. And this is also, of course, of the local setting. So people are pretty much still living in big families. They meet over the weekend with relatives or friends. There's also like mass events, for example, the mosques that attract a lot of people on Fridays. So that's why the government decided to shut down here Fridays completely. So today as well, there's a lockdown and nobody's allowed to leave the house. And of course, then everything that normally happens on Friday tends to happen on a Saturday. There was also a local election here, or a national election, about 2 weeks ago, and the government decided to have a 5-day lockdown following that, also completely locked down. People were shopping before and then just staying in their homes. So this is all, of course, very, very challenging. And somehow I have worked around it by going more digital. I've initiated a digital academy with some friends where we try to support digital work in the development field, particularly for training content, but also for running workshops or doing remote consulting. And work-wise, we have also switched very much to the online tools that many people are using now. But with this academy, what we can do is we can actually go one step further and make also more interactive workshops using different tools and different techniques that have been out there, but not very much taken up in the past. So yeah, I mean, this was all very interesting. I kind of discovered a new world, so to speak. What was the most challenging was probably the private part, where you had to, yeah, well, find similar solutions. We organize virtual coffees or virtual drinks in the evening. I'm still meeting some friends, but very limited and with a distance and usually in outside spaces. So yeah, it's kind of a long drag, this crisis, I would say. It's continuing and we don't know when it ends. It's probably, very much attached to the term insecurity. So people don't know what will happen next. And that, of course, is very challenging when you're not in your home country. So being an expert in this situation makes it somehow even more difficult to cope with it, I would say, because you are naturally more prone to find yourself on airports to get back home, or you're naturally in a less stable situation because you're kind of uprooted and you're based in a completely different culture. So here, of course, the culture is that there's a lot of people that believe the whole thing is a conspiracy. Whether that's in supermarkets or in other places, you see that the hygiene measures are not really followed. People go in without masks. You can see when you drive around the city that there's even larger patches of people not wearing masks at all. And we can see that this also has an effect on the numbers we see here in Jordan. Work-wise, we have adapted to it relatively well. We have, of course, different instruments to react to a health crisis like this. And a lot of the money has been shifted onto towards that. So we were able to also support the Jordanian government. And yeah, I would say, of course, this is something that, again, is in flux. So we don't really know what we need in the health sector to respond to this crisis, since it is constantly evolving. And one of the activities we supported was, for example, creating emergency rooms that was already ongoing, but was then also shifted more towards the actual needs of a corona patient. And we have then also rolled out initiatives with different hospitals and so on. So yeah, I mean, the government itself is quite active. They are deciding on a weekly basis on new measures. Um, but of course now, I would say the economy is more of their concern because it was quite a big hit to the economy in springtime already, where we were up to like only 100, 200 cases a day. But now we see cases of up to 6, 7,000, sometimes only 5,000, depending on the day of the week. So yeah, I mean, I got myself only once tested because we had a case in the office, and it was somebody very close to us, I would say. So it was actually the cleaner on our floor. And so we are, we most of us got tested and most of us were okay. But then we also started teleworking at some point to come around these problems. And so we don't need to each time get tested when a colleague tests positive. Most of our work can be done remotely. I would say like the quick exchanges you usually have with colleagues have to be kind of recreated with something like virtual coffees or picking up the phone, or simply just writing more details in an email. So this is working relatively well, but I think there is a limit to it. I mean, we cannot continue this forever. Being the coordinator in the office, it's particularly difficult for me because I have to talk to the various people during the day usually, and so I pick up the phone quite a bit. Luckily, I have quite a good setup here at home, so my PC and everything was up and running within a day because I'm also doing lots of things outside of my work. I'm quite involved in the international monitoring innovation community, so there I have also given webinars in recent months and hooked up with people in India and Sri Lanka and other places, also here in Jordan. And so this was all quite interesting. And I actually also discovered a couple of new opportunities with these online webinar tools, etc. And people were more buying into it. So somehow you could also connect online much easier than you could before the crisis. On the personal side, of course, it was very tough on the children, I think, because normally I see them very regularly, every 2 months. Again, we compensate with online meetings, but it's not the same thing than hugging somebody or holding hands or doing something together. So that was quite a challenge. Yeah, but I mean, somehow we're also used to talking online to each other, and it just was a little bit more now in this crisis. And I'm sure we'll find a good way to make up for it. And I will definitely also take some parental leave at some point when we are free to move again and to compensate for that and maybe have a long holiday over summer or so with them. So that's definitely something we will do next year or the year after.